If you're a mid-level to C-suite leader who wants to own your growth and figure out your next small, brave move to achieve your leadership goals, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Small Brave Moves podcast, a weekly deep dive on how to be braver in leadership and in life for exceptional results. I'm your host, Nicole Bianchi, best-selling author, certified master executive coach, NSA certified speaking professional, chief bravery officer, and tough talk expert. If you're ready to become a better, braver, and more authentic leader, let's dive in. Sometimes the most life-changing journeys begin with a single uncertain step. And today, I'm honored to welcome Jesse Cody, founder of Hike the Good Hike, to the Small Brave Moves podcast. Jesse's story is one of resilience, transformation, and the power of nature to heal. Nearly a decade ago, he stood at a crossroads, struggling with his mental health and questioning his future until a chance encounter set him on a path he just never expected. That path led him to the Appalachian Trail, a 2,000-mile trek that quite literally saved his life. In this episode, Jesse shares his deeply personal journey of struggle, survival, and self-discovery through hiking. We talk about the bravery it takes to step into the unknown, the lessons nature teaches us, and why he's now dedicated to helping others find solace and strength from the wilderness. His nonprofit, Hike the Good Hike, is amplifying stories of mental health, adventure, and resilience, encouraging people to take their very own long walk towards healing. Jesse, I am so excited to have you be a part of the Small Brave Moves podcast. I've loved getting to know you, getting to know your story, your journey, and just your energy is just so infectious. Like, it's so fun to be around you. And I want you to share with the audience, for all of our listeners, tell us just a little bit about who you are and a result that you're proud of creating.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Jesse Cody, and I'm the founder director of Hike the Good Hike. I founded and created this organization 3 years ago, and it's really built off of my own personal story of struggling with mental health, specifically a man struggling with mental health and miraculously finding a way to kind of turn that around and find ways to openly talk about my mental health struggles and how I used hiking to kind of overcome a lot of the things that I was struggling with. I'm very proud of my organization. You know, even though we're going into year 3, it still feels like we're a bit of a baby in the field of nonprofit work. But the vision of Hike the Good Hike is transformed in so many ways, and it's really found its way to what I ultimately wanted to do with it. And I wanted it to be a platform to facilitate storytellers about how being in nature has impacted their mental health for the better.
So tell us about I want to call it a small brave move, but I feel like it's such a big brave move. The move that you made to go on your very first hike. And the reason why, not just why, but I mean, you had no training for something like this, but you knew you needed to go do it.
Yeah. Well, right around 40, when I had my birthday, I really had I was in a place where ultimately I thought my 40th birthday would be my last birthday. And my family and friends gathered for a big birthday party to celebrate, a pretty big birthday when you turn 40, right?
Yeah.
And, I remember going into the party and kind of telling myself that all the things that you're struggling with, let's put that stuff to the side today. Let's embrace who you have in your life, and let's try to just enjoy the day. And that's where I was at that time. Like, I had to talk myself into trying to just take one day at a time, and hopefully I can enjoy that day. And more times than not, that wasn't working, but that party was quite different for me. And, it was 40, 50 plus people that were gathered, and it was a really enjoyable time. And I had this moment where I just was in the middle of everybody, and I was looking around, and I just felt this overwhelming, powerful feeling of love that was coming from me from directions. And, I said to myself, how can somebody who has so much good in their life just all the time thinking about wanting to take their life? And, a lot of people who struggle with mental health, a lot of men who struggle with mental health, I didn't have the bravery to even be open about my struggles. I was very good at hiding it from my family, my friends. I never really gave therapy a real chance. I'd spent a couple times in psych wards, and I was saying to myself, you owe it to these people to at least try. Maybe this isn't your last birth. Really, the one thing that hit me hard was I thought to myself, what if the next time these people gathered, it was for your funeral? And I just couldn't let that go.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gave me a bit of a will to like really say, let's see what's out there. Like, let's figure out like what the next steps are for you to take to like follow through with giving yourself a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the party and, for a few weeks, as I was really starting to dive into some understanding of what I could do, I saw that Robert Redford was making Bill Bryson's book, A Walk in the Woods, into a movie. That book is about hiking the Appalachian Trail. And it's his own story of how he discovered the Appalachian Trail and what it meant to him. And I had actually read that book in my early 20s, probably the only book I read in my early 20s. But, I kind of, without knowing it, finally listened to a sign. And because that book was reappearing in my life, I went and I picked it up.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't thinking maybe it's time to go hike a big trail, so let's go get that book. I just needed some inspiration. And I remember that book lent me some inspiration in my early 20s, and that there were some really powerful parts about that book that I enjoyed. And so when I started reading the book again, it's very early on that Bryson talks about his discovery of this trail that's in his backyard. He was a professor at Dartmouth.
Mhm.
One day, every time he was doing dishes, he could see people through the trees. And what's going on? And so we took a walk, and he saw a sign that said footpath, Georgia that way, Maine that way. In his own way, he was like, I need to know more about this trail.
Yeah.
And like I said, he was a professor. He had a family. He had already been a very established writer and known for his books. And he had a lot of good in his life. But when he started discovering more and more about the AT, he had this feeling like, for all that's good in my life, I still feel like there are things that I'm missing and that I need answers to.
Yeah.
And he said maybe a long walk would help me find those answers. And I said to myself, I know this is crazy. I know that a person who had no experience with nature or the wilderness, for my 40 years of life, I grew up in the Boston area. I lived in New York City for several years. I ran bars, I ran nightclubs. Like, jungles for me were very different. Anything that I would read about in terms of nature. But I was still struck by that long walk. And I made a decision I'm gonna take a long walk. I'm gonna walk as long as I can and see what it can teach me, see what it can teach me about myself, and maybe the answers that I'm looking for will be out there for me as well. Obviously I didn't head out the next day.
Yeah.
I took a few months, to really do my research, to prepare myself, to talk to my family, to talk to my friends. I still wasn't ready to open fully and tell them how dark my head and my mind was and my mental health, but I said enough. I said, I'm at a point in my life where I don't know what I'm really doing, and I feel like I need some purpose, and there's got to be something more to life for me. I think this is something that can show me that. And my family and friends were all very, very supportive of this decision. And so then it was roughly 3 months later that, with my life in a backpack, I headed down to Georgia, and, I got to Springer Mountain. I started that long walk.
Wow. And what so as you began that walk, immediately what I'm thinking about is like your mindset, right? So what did you start seeing with your mindset as you began on this journey?
Well, just steps in. I said, whoa, I'm actually walking to Maine.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What have I done? But then I realized this is a long trek of discovery, and I knew a lot of the things that I would discover it would be a struggle.
Yeah.
There would be things that were going to be hard to face, but I was going to be forced, in a sense, to face them. I was in a place that I didn't have the comforts of family and friend and around me, and the normalcy of like a home where I live. This was going to be a scene that was far different than anything I'd seen before. It was going to be people and strangers that I didn't know. And so, I knew that the reason I was here was that I had to confront myself, and this was a good place to do that. That this was a place that was going to really peel back the layers and expose them and put them in front of me for me to kind of analyze and work through as I'm walking.
So you're taught, what's coming up for me is the uncertainty of what your mind's going to open up to, right? The uncertainty of the people being around complete strangers, right? On the
Right.
journey and the
Right.
uncertainty of where this path is really going to take you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's easy, and that's early on. It was it. You, I wouldn't know. I don't know if I'd say I'd second guess it, but I knew ultimately I was in a place that was very different to anything I was used to. So then you're like, am I doing the right thing? And this is so different to me. It's like hard not to like look all around and be like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
did you actually know what you were getting yourself into? But I will tell you, Nicole, I never uh, from the moment I made the decision to hike it, the moment that I started walking to the moment that I summited Katahdin 6 months later, I never ever even came close to this point where I said to myself, you should quit. And
Wow.
that for me was the first time maybe in my life that I hadn't thought to myself stuff opposite of wanting to quit, you know? And that I felt that, that like I felt that in my soul, in my veins, that I was like, how do you, even in the hardest of moments, because trust me, there were some really challenging,
Sure.
whoa moments. I'd come out of those moments and I'd say to myself, yeah, but you never said, let's quit,
Right.
and that really was like, and that in itself is, you're in a better place than you've ever been. Yeah.
I so many times I think about us as and our audience as leaders who are in those difficult moments or feeling at their lowest point or things are just not, going the way they need to. We seem to power through it, right? Like we just go, like it's just got it. We move into action, like power through it. We'll get through it. What I really appreciate about the moment that you did was in the cycle of renewal, they talk about cocooning, right? And like really
Mhm.
pulling away from everything to do the deeper
Mhm.
work of what of you and what needs to. And in today's world, it's so busy. It doesn't allow us the workplace doesn't allow us to do the cocooning moments. And so
Right.
I admire the fact that you just said, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to figure it out. Right. And so talk to me about let's come out on the other side, right? Like
Mhm.
the benefits, like even the building of the good hike, right? Like talk
Mm.
to me about what came out of this 6 months journey.
Yeah. You know, you have a lot of time to think out there.
Yeah.
And so these lessons that you're learning, you're kind of processing them along the way, and trying to have an understanding of what they mean. What I appreciate most about Mother Nature, because that's what it is to me. There's a massive female energy to nature that I greatly appreciate and has taught me a lot. And in a sense, we call her Mother Nature because yes, she can be beautiful, nurturing, and caring, but she can also put on some serious tough love when it's
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
Like, like, it reminds me a lot of my actual mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but what I was kind of generating throughout the hike was this understanding that like you're one, I'm starting to find that I have a lot of perseverance in me, that
Yeah.
I'm actually able to climb mountains, get over them, and continue on, that I can push forward even when I think, how am I able to do that? And so that lesson was very important to me, because then it said to me, look who you actually are. And I knew after the Appalachian Trail that there still were going to be a lot of obstacles. There's
Yeah.
still going to be a lot of challenges.
Sure.
There are going to be moments like I'm going to have to go back to Boston, and I'm going
Yeah.
to have to be in an environment where things were at their worst. And I'm going to have to figure out from there, like, how do I navigate this, and like, what's the right thing for me to make sure I'm staying on this,
Mhm.
this journey
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
mine. And so I truly appreciate the understanding that she was saying to me, I'm going to give you tools, but you're going to have to keep those tools with you, because you're going to need them. You're going to need these because you're going to be confronted again and again and again. Mental health is almost like, I like to say, it's very similar to addiction, in the sense that you can go to a meeting and you can see someone stand up and say their name and I'm an addict, but they've been clean for 20 years, right?
Right.
But
Right.
they know that they have to continue to stay in that place, that because at any moment things can change.
Right.
And that's mental health, right?
Right.
If I tell myself I'm done with nature,
Yeah.
or like I don't need therapy anymore,
Yeah.
right away I start seeing things like, nope, no, whoa, 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 whoa.
Ah,
You got to stay the course. Like you have to understand that you have to constantly stay the course. And so that was a big appreciation for me. And on the last day when I was climbing Katahdin, which is the end of the trail in Maine, one of the most beautiful mountains, I had been hiking with a small group for about 2 months, the last end of the trail. And I just said to them, I love you guys. I'll see you at the top. I'd like to just have some time to myself because I needed to reflect and I needed to thank. That was important to me to thank her. And while I was having this conversation with her, I said to her, I said, I understand what you're doing here. You didn't do this so I would keep it to myself. You didn't save me to keep inside of myself. You did this because now you're telling me, now share it with the world.
right.
Right? Let people know. Tell your story.
Mhm.
And that's another like massive step because I knew coming out of that trail that it was time for me to start talking about this.
Yeah.
Initially talking to my family first and friends and telling them how deep it was before this hike. And I said, I promised them, I don't know how, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm going to dedicate my life to sharing what you've taught me. And so, in a way that was like another hike for me. It's like, all right, man, now you got to take this next blind leap because you've made a promise. And if you don't follow through with it, the next time you go hiking, that tough love is going to come from her.
Yeah.
And so, it's been years of figuring out what that meant. But I mean, little by little, I started understanding that the world needed to hear my story. The world needed to give it to people who needed inspiration, but also needed to give it to people who also wanted to tell their story because we all have a story and sometimes we're afraid to tell it. But when we see others sharing theirs, it gives us that bravery, right?
Right. Your bravery inspires others to be brave, right? Your vulnerability creates bravery for those around you. And I think about the power of what you're talking about. And first off, I didn't know the last 2 months you had a small group with you. How was that, you had part of it by yourself and then part of it like with this group to finish something so iconic and, and what a moment that might be, but that you just truly owned what needed to happen, owned your growth, invested in yourself and took the time. Like so many of us don't do that. And I just think that the true growth is really us stepping into those moments and then and then her nudging you to say, okay, now it's time to share this with so many others. And you're providing such a powerful way for people to talk about the challenges that they're up against, right? With mental health, which we still haven't figured out in our country, right? We're so far from it, so far from it.
So far from it.
Right? So far from it. So talk to us about Hike the Good Hike. Talk to us about your organization.
Yeah. So as mentioned earlier, really like the direction that we're going with this is like, we want to branch out our platform. We're not really in-person programming to say that might not happen down the road,
right?
But we want to give people a place to come if they are looking for a place of comfort to share their experiences, right? Not all those stories are easy, especially when it comes to mental health. People are sharing with us difficult journeys to get to a journey, what I like to call a journey of light, And so what we do with that is we offer, like, if you're a writer, we'd be happy to post your piece on our website. If you're a content creator, we'd be happy to, use our platform for you to have a place to speak specifically, like, this is what happened to me in nature. I was struggling with these things. We are very honored to be having a movie done on myself and 2 other hikers, which is a Hike the Good Hike production at the end of the year. We film in October, and it's called The Lowest to Highest, which is an actual trail here in the lower 48 of America. And we're going to be hiking from Death Valley, which is roughly 240 feet below sea level, 150-mile trail to the peak of Mount Whitney, which is 14,600 feet roughly. And that's the lowest and highest points in our lower 48.
Nice.
And the story embodies our mission and what we're doing. It's 3 of us telling our stories and what we went through and what we struggled with and how getting into nature really changed the path of our lives. Mm-hmm. And ultimately that's my biggest goal is if you say, well, where do you see Hike the Good Hike in 5 years? I want to say man, I hope there's 1,000 stories told in 1,000 different ways, and that we're facilitating that for people and they feel good about it. And people are coming to our platform and feeling inspired. And most importantly, people are getting outside. They're stepping. And when I say that, I mean that in so many different ways. They're literally getting outside, but then they're getting outside, their own head. They're getting outside their chaos, their surroundings, and they're finding ways to really use nature as a therapy, because it's you prescribe it to yourself. You don't have to write a prescription.
Yes.
It doesn't cost money. Like,
Yeah.
you can prescribe nature to yourself. And important for me to say, you don't have to quit your career and go hike a 2,000-mile trail. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
If you can,
Yeah.
it's quite amazing. Science shows just a couple hours a week in nature really truly benefits your mental health, your anxiety, your depression. It has this incredibly magical ability to just help and bring a little light into that darkness that you're holding to.
Yeah, it really does. And I think about when we invest our energy in mindsets, behaviors, habits to make the small, brave moves, we have to. Otherwise, it's difficult to be brave, right? It's difficult if we don't have the right mindset, behaviors, and habits. And I think about when I'm really intentional on my best days and my best weeks, I'm doing the walk outside, or I'm getting near, for me, it's like not mountains, but it's ocean, right? Being near water and walking the beaches or walking trails near it, where it just helps center and focus. And what's so fun about it, and I'm sure you realize this too, is the ideas and the things that unfold when you just be still and be quiet. And you still your mind. You're obviously moving your body, but your mind is still, and it's powerful what can come out of it. And so,
and I'll take it even one step further. What I really notice is that the quiet is beautiful. What else is so incredible is like the smell.
Yes.
Like you really actually even have like a different taste in your mouth when you're in these surroundings. What you hear, like the surroundings, that like just listening, whether it's wildlife or just the wind blowing through the leaves and trees or the leaves, it's just, there's nothing like it. It's just like the most peaceful place. Some of my favorite hiking days have been times that I've like hiked in rainstorms on mountaintops.
Yes.
It's like, people think, I'm like, you have no idea how impactful that can be to you and your mental health. There's something truly magical about it, And I like what you said, the beach. I was just telling you beforehand, man, I was hiking in Florida. And 50% of my hike was in cypress swamps. So I'm in like shin to knee deep water surrounded by alligators.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. My mom hates me. My mom is like, why couldn't you have been an accountant?
It's the adventure in you, which I so appreciate. So I feel confident because Jesse, you're so humble in the work you do and the journey you've been on, which is one of the reasons I'm definitely drawn to you. You're just so humble, but you have such a big impact and ripple effect in your life, before today, during today, and it'll go on for years to come. And I had the opportunity to hear one small ripple effect, actually it's a large ripple effect, that you had on one of your runners as a track coach. And I'd just love for you to share a little bit of that story, because when I heard it, here I am sitting next to you and we're spending this time for a full day. And then this story comes out 2 days later. I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. You're making a large impact on so many. So I'd love for you to share that story.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so you're just going to have to understand, when I tell stuff like this, I get emotional.
Good. Because I'm about to wipe away tears here too.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Adam Smiley Paulswalski, who is a force of a writer and a keynote speaker and really knows how to motivate people and feel good about life. He's somebody that I've known for a very long time. I met Smiley when he was 13 years old, and he's in his 40s now, which now I'm telling everybody how old I am. But he was a young man who was coming into high school. He was very small. His social life was probably a bit different. He was bullied. I hate to say it, but a typical kid who might be a little different than the jocks and such. And so he wanted to be part of something, like coming into high school. He knew that he wanted to make friends and he just wanted to feel like he belonged. And so he decided to come out for the cross country team because the cross country team takes everybody.
Hey, your cross country team took me too. Okay.
And me. I'm wearing a Cambridge cross country sweatshirt as we
There you
speak.
go.
And so, he came out, he joined the team. He felt, he was probably feeling a little nervous, but he kind of felt right off the bat that he was welcome there, and his teammates welcomed him there. And so, one day we're doing a hill workout, and he's, everybody's charging up these hills up and down, and everybody's hurting. But Adam's going by, and Adam was in pain. The way that he would deal with it, he would smile. So I'm his coach, and so I'm on the side, and I'm watching him, and after a couple, the next time he goes by, I go, Adam, why are you smiling? It's supposed to hurt. And he's like, it does hurt. This is what I do. And so after the hill workout, we were all having a laugh, and I was like, listen, Smiley, is this what you're going to do every time you're hurting? And from that moment on, he went by Smiley. And to this day, no one calls him Adam. I called him Adam like the first night at Impact 11. And everybody was like, whoa,
Who's the
who
Adam?
calls him that? Yeah. And I was like, well, I knew him, but I didn't want to tell anybody how. I wanted to kind of establish myself there. But as he told the story, he starts all his keynotes with that story that I just told. But what was really special to hear from him in that moment, because honestly, Nicole, he's never told me those things, is that cross country gave him a place where he felt welcomed, where it gave him an identity, where, he made the best of friends, that he was somebody who stood out. And, ultimately, like my brother and I were just talking about this, Smiley was captain, so we made him a captain. And he wasn't a state champ. He wasn't one of the best runners. He's always in the back, but his work ethic was amazing and his energy was amazing. And those are the kind of people that you can look at and say, that's a leader. And so we wanted to make sure that he knew that and that we recognized that. And that's why we made him the captain of our cross country track team his senior year. And so for him to share what that meant to him and the impact I had, as was really special to me, because when I was coaching Smiley 20-ish years ago, my mental health struggles were real then. My darkness was real. And I didn't, even as a high school coach, I never could see that I was making an impact on his life or anybody's life. I always kind of thought I wasn't worthy, and that there's nothing I could do for anybody to make them feel differently about themselves in a positive way. And so Smiley sharing that with everybody, and then me having the opportunity to stand and thank him. I've had a lot of incredibly special moments the last 10 years of my life, things that I'm still wrapping my head around, but that one is really high up on the list of incredible things that I've.
When we talk about, and I think about small, brave moves, so many small, brave moves go unrecognized, uncelebrated, just unknown for years to come. And so for that to come back to you after all of these years, I really hope, my hope for you is that you know the ripple effect that you have had, will continue to have, in this amazing work. Like, I was so drawn to you when we were having these conversations and I was learning about you, and I'm like, oh, your mission, with Hike the Good Hike, and how you have taken your life's purpose, like, and wrap this all into one and are doing this amazing work. I just want you to know I am cheering you on. And for the listeners out there, how can we support you? How can we support Hike the Good Hike, especially with this new hike coming up here this fall?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're a nonprofit.
Yeah.
We need all the help we can get. And we're in a place, I'm even reading some news today that a lot of funding frozen out of DC. And I don't make things political, but I certainly fight for the work that I'm doing. And, that kind of money is the money that I was reading about is grants, and so as mental health advocate, we're not only fighting to try to chip away at a stigma that has been part of this world for as long as we can remember, but we're also fighting for funding so we can create and grow the things that we're working on to help people. And so we are at hikethegoodhike.org. We are at Hike the Good Hike on all social media. There's a lot of different ways to help us. Donation, spreading the word is just as important for us, because we are trying to find more and more storytellers. And just jump on over there. And if you have questions, reach out, just email. I see all the emails, and always looking for people to contribute, whether it's through donations or through sharing their stories or just spreading the word about what we're doing.
I love that. Okay, one final thought for our listeners.
Yeah.
What is one small, brave move you would suggest to listeners as they, in their leadership journey, continue on based on what you've shared with us so far?
Come out of your comfort zone. Take that leap. Leaps come in a lot of different sizes, and I'm still getting emotional. And whether it's a small leap or a big leap, trust me, it may not materialize, or like the results might not be exactly what you're looking for, but within the results, there's a little piece of that result you're looking for. So come out of your comfort zone. If you see something you think might be worth checking out, attempting, learning about, and you come up for it with an excuse not to do so, push that excuse away and take that leap.
As Jesse and I are wiping away the tears here, take the leap. I hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much, Jesse, for joining the Small Brave Moves podcast. I deeply appreciate you and can't wait to support your mission.
Thank you. You mean the world to me as well, Nicole. You really do.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Small Brave Moves podcast. If you're wanting to take this work even deeper, I'm here to help. From engaging in inspirational keynote speeches to transformational coaching and workshops for leaders and teams, page-turning books, online courses, and enlightening leadership development retreats. There are so many ways that we can work together to take your leadership to the next level. For more information, check out the show notes, and let's do this together, one small brave move at a time. See you next week.